Dear friends, a warm welcome to this new initiative called Literature for Life. This is a platform to reach out to students of literature across borders and boundaries, all of whom are interested in the study of literature, but especially in these times are missing out their regular classes, as many of the requests which I have received show. So, after nearly a decade of teaching English language and literature, I felt this would be a wonderful platform for me to meet all these bright young minds. I'm Dr. Rosita Joseph, and I hope to share whatever information, knowledge, and wisdom I have gained through these years of teaching with all of you, and also to learn from all of you. So let us begin with our first module. Dear friends, before we start with our very first module, let me just very briefly explain to you what these sessions are meant to do. These are classes introducing and discussing various aspects, concepts, and works relating to literatures in English, including translations. So we'll be looking at literature-related learning based on the syllabi of universities across our country, and also we also are welcome to having students from outside our borders. And in fact, not only students, but also teachers and friends and members of the general public, anybody and everybody who has an interest in literature is most welcome to log in and join us. So we start with our first module, which is called An Introduction to Literature, Part 1. So before we start the study of this amazing subject, it would be very useful to actually know what we think of literature as a term. How do we define it? How do we explain to others what we mean by the term literature? How do we convey the relevance of the course or the subject that we are studying? And is it actually really possible to define literature? So these and other questions are what we'll be looking at. Now, if you look at it in a very basic way, the word literature in the English language comes from the word literatura in the Latin language. Literatura is derived from the Latin word litera, meaning letter, alphabet, or handwriting. So, meaning to say, when people first started using the term literature, or the broadest possible sense of literature is anything and everything that is written down. But of course, many of you will tell me this is rather confusing because as students of literature, when we study it as a discipline, we cannot possibly be studying anything and everything that is written down. We need to have certain criteria to discriminate. For instance, when you buy a new car or a new washing machine, you get a manual. That too is written. It has got some use. Definitely, it's useful to you. You read it and discard it. Technically speaking, that too is literature. But I'm sure you'll not include it in the academic definition of literature. Now, looking at literature as a discipline, definitely it has to do with works that are written down. But then these works have a lasting, permanent value. These are also works that have a sense of creativity, uniqueness, and artistic merit. And they also make use of extraordinary language. So, to put it simply, as a discipline, we are not looking at everything that is written down. When we speak of literature as a discipline, we are looking at written works which are creative, unique, and artistic, which create a thing of beauty and which give you a sense of deep pleasure, which use language in a way that stands out. And because of the great ideas and the great use of language, they would have permanent or lasting value, which is read and cherished and passed on from generation to generation. For instance, you can speak of the Iliad and the Odyssey, the great Greek epics. You can speak of the great Sanskrit epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. You can speak of all our great scriptures, the Bible, the Quran, the Gita, the various uh, works of our great scholars and writers and philosophers. I'll give you many more examples as we proceed further, but I hope it is clear basically what we are looking at. Now that we have a basic sense of what literature means, we can look at how people have defined it, tried to define it, in fact. So, a very common definition that you come across in literature classes is that it is a mirror of life, it's a reflection of everything around you. Webster's dictionary would say that writings that have excellence of form or expression and express ideas of permanent or universal interest are called literature. Whereas the Encyclopedia Britannica speaks of it as the best expression of the best thought reduced to writing. So, what are the elements we have seen so far? Definitely, it is written. Definitely, it has got wonderful ideas or thoughts. And definitely, it is something which is expressed in a wonderful manner. And it reflects the universe around you. So, definitely, when you have something which reflects the universe and which has got great ideas and which is put forth or expressed in a great manner, what you get is something of lasting value, which you call literature. Moving on, perhaps a beautiful definition which sums up these ideas, saying literature and butterflies are the two sweetest passions known to man. Now, Vladimir Nabokov compares literature with butterflies, meaning to say, what do you feel when you look at a butterfly? A sense of, the beauty. It's so attractive, it is so appealing. It gives you pleasure, it gives you joy. For a moment, it makes you forget about the mundane realities around you and transports you to a different world. And that is perhaps what literature does. Moving on to definitions which are, again, trying to put across the same ideas, but perhaps in a different way. Ezra Pound calls it language charged with meaning to the utmost possible degree. So, this is great literature, he says, which can pack meaning into words. The language is very, very important, and that language has the power to give you great thoughts. And Stofford Brooke puts it very precisely, or rather, I would say very exactly, when he says that you cannot call writing literature unless it gives you pleasure. And that pleasure comes from not only what is said, but the way in which it is said. So ultimately, it is all about putting your great ideas into beautiful words and sentences. And Cyril Connolly sums it all up when he says, literature is the art of saying something that will be read twice, meaning you will go back to a work of literature and read it and enjoy it again and again and cherish it and learn from it, or perhaps be comforted by it. Why would you do that? Because definitely, as we have seen in all the earlier definitions, it's a reflection of the world around you. It tells you about the world, the universe around you. It has got wonderful ideas. It has got wonderful language. And all these combine together to create a thing of beauty which gives you pleasure. And I am reminded of our very own Bharata Muni, who wrote the great Natya Shastra. He lived between the 1st century BC and the 3rd century AD. And this great scholar and critic speaks of rasa, the pleasure that you get from a work of art. It may be literature or music or dance or drama. It evokes a deep sense of pleasure. This is the essence that the reader, the juice, the sap, the extract that the reader or the spectator draws from a work of art. And it gives, and this pleasure comes from an identification with the various human emotions. So basically, when you speak of literature, what are you looking at? You are looking at the way in which we humans look at the universe around us. And this looking at the universe around us evokes various kinds of emotions in us. And that's where Bharata speaks about the Navarasas, the 9 different emotions: anger and fear and disgust and jealousy and surprise and excitement and joy and love or romance. all these various emotions. So when you identify deeply with one or more of these emotions, when a work of art allows you to identify deeply and thereby gives you pleasure, that's what creates great literature or a great work of art. So all these definitions you would have noticed are revolving around more or less the same ideas. Moving on to something which is slightly different, Lionel Trilling speaks of literature that takes account of the variousness, the possibility, the complexity, and difficulty of life of people of the world around you. And that makes it a very, very human activity. Because as you know, human life itself, the universe around us, is not black and white. It has got multiple shades, can be interpreted in so many ways. People are complex, realities are multidimensional. Leon Brooks makes a very important statement when he says that literature gives you a picture of life. Definitely, it reflects life, but it does not reflect it in its exactness like science. It reflects it in its own unique way. It highlights whatever aspects it wishes to highlight. It dramatizes things. It allows you to experience it deeply and transports you to a different world. It's just like giving five children a task. You can ask five of them to paint the same sunset, and each picture would be different. But at the same time, each one would be reflecting the truth of the sunset. So that's the beauty of literature. And finally, coming to some political definitions, literature is the expression of a nation's mind and writing. So when you look at people as an organized community that shares deep sense of belonging, commonness of culture, of heritage, of values, of history, deep sense of bonding, something which expresses that entire nation or culture, which gives expression to their philosophy of life, to their experiences, can be called literature. The Ramayana and the Mahabharata can be called Indian literature, just as Shakespeare is England's national poet and Robert Frost is America's poet. And, you have the Iliad and the Odyssey express the greatness or the glories of the Greek culture. So at the same time, we should not forget that within a nation, there may be many subcultures and subnationalities. So literature should be capable of reflecting those as well. And finally, one definition that I really love, all that is literature seeks to communicate power. That's what Thomas De Quincey says, that the real test of a work of literature is the empowering feeling that it gives to you. So, dear friends, we need not go to literature for knowledge or information. We can get that from so many different sources. What literature gives you is the ability to absorb and to critically analyze and to think deeply about that knowledge or information which you have got, to gain wisdom from it and to apply it in practical day to day life, to empower yourself, to have a deeper awareness of what you are and what people around you are. So it may be anything from somebody who has discovered his own inner potential to someone who is writing a poem to protest injustice around him. Literature communicates power. Literature changes the person who reads it, changes the person to whom it is transmitted. And that is why we have this very saying which is very common, but which we do not think about deeply, in fact, that the pen is mightier than the sword. So those in power do not fear anything more than literature, which is in fact one of the greatest sources of power. So these are all the definitions that we have seen so far. And let me just sum it up. We have looked at literature as a reflection of the universe around us, as great thoughts expressed in a great manner. We have looked at it as a reflection of the complexity and the multidimensionality of life, as a unique reflection, not an exact reflection, but a unique reflection of realities around us, as something which gives us beauty and pleasure and has got lasting artistic value. And finally, we looked at it as something which is an expression of an entire race or culture, and which is also one of the great sources of power, at least for us humans. So, having looked at all these definitions, let us do a small fun activity. I'm going to present two pieces of writing before you. And you need to tell me which of these two strike you as more or less literary, or perhaps literary and non literary. Here you have three emphatic statements. I have many tasks to complete before the end of my life. I cannot afford to be carried away by temptations. I must move on and fulfill all my responsibilities. So I hope you have understood these fairly simple statements which speak about your goal or your aim, which is very, very important and which does not allow you to get diverted by the momentary pleasures of life. So the sense of duty, the sense of responsibility is very strong. So these statements, and then another piece of writing, which is a poem by Robert Frost, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it cure to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. These woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So now the question is, which of these two pieces would you consider as more literary? Definitely take a moment to think about it. Most of you would definitely look at the second piece and say, this looks literary, or this looks like literature, or perhaps this is what we will study when we are studying literature. Why did you come to that conclusion? Is it just because the poem is very neatly arranged into four stanzas, and then there are rhyming words in every stanza, and the backdrop is beautiful? Well, that would be a very superficial reading. If you look closely, what you have seen in these three sentences and what you have seen in the poem, the content is exactly the same. The difference is the manner of expression. In fact, in the second poem, both the matter and the manner are seamlessly welded together. You cannot separate the two. So, Robert Frost wants to convey this very common problem that we all face. You know, at a point in life, we all feel that we should stop and take rest. We cannot continue this struggle any longer. But then, that sense of duty or responsibility, the aim or the goal or the higher purpose or meaning in life comes to mind, and we get up and move on despite all the temptations, the struggles, and the difficulties. So he puts this across in a very simple yet effective way when he speaks of, or rather gives you this image of a man journeying through the woods all alone. It's a cold winter evening, it's snowing, the landscape around him is amazing, but it's a lonely and tiring journey. And he just wants to stop and take rest and forget about everything else and remain there. But then he says, I have promises to keep and many miles to go before I sleep. So sleeping here may mean just going to bed, reaching the end of the journey, the destination, reaching home, or it can even mean the end of the journey in the world and death. So it can also mean the life after. Well, that's the beauty of this poem. You can interpret it in as many different ways as possible. But most of us will come to a conclusion that it's a very motivational poem. This is something which has inspired people, great leaders, and people when they were, stuck in really difficult situations in life, that they must move on and go on. So, the way Frost expresses it, the beauty of the imagery and the landscape and the thoughts and the feelings, takes it to a very, very human level. And we feel transported to a different place altogether. We can identify with whatever he's saying. At the same time, something of great value, something which would be read and thought over again and again, has been conveyed in the simplest words possible. So definitely, this is very powerful literature. And dear friends, I'm sure if you now go back and look at all the definitions of literature, you will understand what all those people were trying to say when they were trying to define literature. The best example is before you. So, with this, we come to the end of our first module. And let me hope that you have gained some sense of what literature means as a word, as a term, as an academic discipline. What are the qualities that we look for when we speak of a work of literature? I would be very, very happy to answer your queries, to get your feedback, and to further modify my sessions accordingly. Please do write to me. So, dear friends, I really enjoyed having this session with you. I hope you too have learned something new today, or if not something new, the concepts which you had earlier have been further clarified. So, we'll meet each other in the next session, that is an introduction to literature, part 2. Till then, stay safe and keep smiling. Thank you very much.